Hello, everyone. My name is Mark from the Misplay Podcast, and you're listening to Eternal Journey, everyone's favorite Eternal podcast.
Welcome to Eternal Journey, the podcast.
Greetings, all my knights and padawans. You are listening to Eternal Journey, the podcast that talks about all things eternal with a focus on limited play. I'm your host, Jedi. This is episode 104 of the podcast, where we have our very own first world competitor for 2021 on the show, TheBoxer. So I guess since I already said it, let's go ahead and welcome Boxer. Thank you so much for being on the show, buddy.
Thanks. I'm really excited to be here.
We are excited to have you. It's like I'm sure everyone was foaming at the mouth to try to get one of the top players in Eternal up there. But of course, before we deep dive into your background and whatnot, let's go ahead and welcome our good friends on the show, starting with Darth Herman 2. How you doing, friend?
Good evening. Doing well. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, man. If I'm being honest, I'm a little tired, but streaming's still great, so I can't complain. I'm doing what I love, so life is grand. Sitting across from him on the internet, it's probably the best brewer we have on the podcast, John Holio. What's up, homie?
Hey, friends. Happy to be here as always.
Sweet. I know it's going to be fun. We get to pick the brain of someone that is no stranger to top 8 and all the great things. And I feel like half the show is just going to be stroking your ego, Boxer, but it's well deserved. I mean, you got such a consistent competitive play showing all the time. I gotta ask one thing though, and I'll save it. I'll save it for our main topic. Real quick, a little bit of housekeeping. Of course, you guys can catch the video version of this show and other draft videos and constructive videos, as well as my recent tournament report on Eternal Journey on YouTube. Or, of course, you can catch us streaming live every Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday at twitch.tv/Jedi_EJ. And then lastly, I want to say a big thank you to all the great supporters of the channel, subbing month after month. You guys are amazing. Really do appreciate it. Help do all the great things like keep this podcast hosted and doing the YouTube stuff and just, having a great time. I had a blast tonight. Even though I was tired, I had a great time chatting it up with everyone. So thank you all. A couple of quick shout outs to Dr. So for the 3-month sub. And then Great Good Manda made 9 months this week, which means she earned her Yoda badge, which is super awesome. And since we're doing plugs, Boxer, do you want to go ahead and plug your podcast?
Yeah, so I am one of the 2 hosts alongside Notorious GHP of the Backlash podcast. I'm not going to try to tell you when we release them every week because it's become pretty random at this point. But check us out basically everywhere podcasts are hosted.
Awesome. Yeah, it's a great time. Both John and I listen to them, so definitely check it out. All right, that will do it. So let's go ahead and dive into our obligatory pack one, pick one. Boxer, I know you mentioned a little bit you're not drafting as much as you'd like to at the beginning of the show, but I have no doubt you'll still be able to navigate this pack with the skill of a veteran. So let's go ahead and go through our comments. I'll go through the whole pack and then we'll send it over to you first. So starting off, we have phenomenal first pick, just super flexible, even though it's not super showy. We have Seek Power, 1 cost, factionless. Draw a sigil of your deck, or draw a sigil of your choice from your deck. Like I said, not a flashy card, but it's going to 100% make every deck, so it's not a bad consideration for a first pick, depending on how the rest of the pack goes. Spore Spitter is next, which is a 4/4 Mandrake for 6 double shadow. Has Pledge, Lifesteal, and unblockable while the enemy player has 10 or more cards in their void. Circle Glider is a 2/5 Serpent for 4 time, flying while you have a relic. Recalculator, it seems to be in every Eternal pack ever, is a 2/2 Grenadin for 4 fire. Entomb, play 2 1/1 Grenadins. Not bad in the Stone Scar deck since you have so much to sacrifice, but we'll see. Don't think it quite takes over Seek Power. Next up is Argentport Soldier, is a 3/2 soldier for 2 justice. Soldiers matter. Rampage is a 2 fire fast spell. Give a unit +3/+1 and overwhelm this turn. Then a card that I'm kind of high on, but I still don't get to play it that often, is Mortar. This is a fast spell for 4 Skycrag. deal 4 damage, period. Can go to a unit or face or weapon or whatever you choose, even your own face for style points. And then finally, rounding off the commons, we have Tower Top Patrol, which is the 1/5 Mystic Soldier for 4 time, and she has flying. So another big blocker to gum up the air when you need to. Going into our uncommons, we have Feln Vow is the you may discard a primal or shadow sigil from your deck to gain an influence of that type and take 1 damage. It's a good way to trigger the Deepwater Vines and occasionally get some stuff in your void if you should need it. Green Stretch Empath is next. It's a 3/5 Druid Soldier for 5 primal. Muster, i.e. play an attachment and a spell in the same turn, and you get to draw 2 cards, so sweet value there. And then finally, one of my personal all-stars, Seasoned Drill Master, is a 3/3 Minotaur Soldier for 3 justice. Summon, give one of your other units +3/+3 this turn. Of course, you're seeing a lot more soldiers because in one of the recent patches, I think 2 months ago, they updated a lot of units to include the Soldier Tribe to facilitate the heavy influence of that in the recent bundles. And then finally, our rare is a pretty decent one. This is Temple Shihan, is a 3/3 unseen for 3 double primal. Inspire, units you draw get flying. And then summon, play inferiority complex on an enemy unit, which pretty much gives a enemy unit reckless. All right, Boxer, you're up first, buddy. What are you looking at and why?
So, the first thing that jumps out is the rare. This is a very powerful rare. Like, flying is a great battle skill. It's good statted. It can sometimes eat their 2-drop or allow a big double block in the late game. It doesn't go with any of the tribes or synergies, though. So that made me not immediately just want to snap it up. I still think it will end up being the pick, but Seasoned Drill Master and Seek Power jump out after that. I think Drill Master is a great soldier, and it does a lot of what you want to be doing in aggressive soldier decks. Seek Power, like you said, is going to end up in every deck. It also allows you to play powerful cards in your deck. If you can afford to take cards that are harder to play if you know you have Seek to help you play them. Mortar is a powerful card, but the fact that it's in Skycrag means it's either only a splash or in Grenadin, which from what my understanding is not one of the more powerful tribes, although I don't know a ton, but I think I'm going to go with Shihan.
Fair enough. Yeah, I think that's a solid pick. That was a great breakdown. John, do you have anything to add on top of that? And what's your pick?
I don't have a lot to add. I am looking at the exact same 3 cards and would also take Temple Shihan. Just so good, such a powerful card by itself for all the reasons Boxer said. It is actually really close though with Drill Master because that's just so good in the format. Particularly good when paired with Fire, but I don't think you even, you're not really caring about the soldier keyword at that point, but it's just the +3, with a lot of Berserk units and Fire and things like that. It just works really good. It's just such a good card in the format.
Ridiculous with Stonehammer for sure.
Yeah, still Shihan though.
All right, and Alex, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm right on the same page with you guys.
Sweet.
The 3/3s between the 3/3s, and I like the blue one better.
Yeah, solid. And I have nothing to add because Boxer did a great job breaking it down. Nice. So there you go. Look at that. Even being rusty, you're still able to throw it down, Boxer. Well done.
I think Shihan's a classic good draft card though, so I'm sure Boxer got some experience with that one.
Fair. It's like, I've drafted this card for years. All right. So with that, let's go ahead and dive into our main topic, which, of course, we recently had, I guess, are they calling it Stormbreak Open? Is that what they called it? Did we have a name for it?
Yeah, it was the Stormbreak Open.
Yeah. All right. Sweet. Well, there you go. We recently had the Stormbreak open this past weekend, and spoiler alert, Boxer took it down. That's right. We'll talk about the deck and all that here in a minute, but like I said, very well known organized play competitor and consistently throwing up top eights. Probably more top eights than I have played opens, period, or day twos. Well, I guess it's not too difficult of a task, but you're good. The man's good, real good. So let's go ahead and dive into it. Tell us a little bit about your level of competitive, like how competitive are you? Is this something you just kind of do offhand on your free time, or is it something you're taking serious? And if so, what are your organized play goals?
I'm currently on a leave of absence from college, which means I have a lot more time to play Eternal, and it's kind of my main thing I do right now. I still try to stay balanced and like walk or bike every day and work on my math research some, but like yeah, I'm very competitive at Eternal. I wouldn't call it a job, but I put the same effort into it I'd put into a job.
Yeah, fair.
So my goals for this season are to keep putting up uh, results after this win more than I did the last season. Like after I did my win, I kind of took my foot off the gas, and I want to see what I can do when I don't do that this year. I would like to do well in a draft event because I think they're really hard to do well in, and I want to prove to myself that I can uh, succeed in a different format than I'm used to. I'd also like to win worlds. I know a lot of people are going to say that, but like that's the big one I'm working towards.
I mean, I don't think that's necessarily a default, right? I mean, I think plenty of people, it's a progression. If they've never made day two, they just want to get day two, and then whatever happens day two, they're happy with. So I kind of feel like you're at the caliber where winning worlds is very much feasible. And I mean, of course, it's a card game where anyone can win, but I think there's going to be some people they're just happy that they're competing at worlds. So I don't think it's too. I don't think it's weird for you to just, or the obvious choice for you to be like, yeah, I want to win worlds. I think it's completely justifiable for that to be a realistic and an aspirational goal. But I am glad that you want to do some drafting too. Give us some credibility over here for our less than apt constructed guys, because I mean, we actually convinced Darth Herman too to do some constructed this year. So we'll see if he can spike attorney, make it to day two, and go deep in the top 8.
That's the plan.
So before we jump into our next question, what do you consider yourself, a brewer or more of a tuner when it comes to constructed play?
So my role has somewhat changed. Last year when Murder of Crows was very active, I was more the tuner, and he would build me these wild brews, and I'd tune them, but now he's not that active competitively, so I kind of am forced to be one of the main brewers on TRS.
Got you. And is it kind of one of those things where you just fall into the role that's given to you, or do you have a preference or something you feel more comfortable in?
I'm fine with both. I generally like there are certain metas where I have a lot of ideas, and then there are others where I just don't, and it's very context dependent, which I like doing.
Of course, it was the first open of the season. We haven't had any kind of organized play in a hot minute, and we had 2 bundles come out into the open prior to this one, to include one coming out, I believe it was that week, right, John? Like 3 or 4 days before they open?
Yes.
Yeah, so which honestly is kind of neat because it rewards the brewers, right? The people that, I mean, I guess it kind of favors the team a little bit when you put a bunch of minds together, but it's kind of cool where some of these strategies that are a little unique that could potentially be solved or counteracted fairly quickly have a chance to shine before people catch on. And we did see that with Popotito's deck that we may talk about a little bit later, or what you brewed up, John. But let's focus on you a little bit more, Boxer. How did you come to your deck selection? And then, giving whatever trade secrets you're comfortable with, what did your tournament prep for this open look like?
So I think a week before the tournament, one of my Lights Out Ace posted this even Felon deck in our Discord, and I started playing it, and I just loved it. I like grindy shadow mid-range decks. I like even-handed Golem. Before I started playing it, I was like, I want this to be a deck I can play. And then when I played it, I was like, this is pretty good. So, and like I'd also hope that the meta wouldn't shake up too much with Stormbreak, because at that point it didn't have any new cards and it didn't look like it would gain much. It was a pretty fine-tuned machine that we got it to before the set came out. Our process for testing this open was somewhat different than we'd done for ECQs in the past. In the past, it was a lot of just back and forth text discussions on Discord, and maybe the night before the top 64, we'd get in a voice call and talk over stuff. But instead, this time it was like the whole week leading up to it. We had like 5 or 6 people on a Discord call. 2 were streaming games. We had some people watching each side. We really dug into the different matchups and tried to figure stuff out together.
Did that prove to kind of be more of a cohesive or more productive kind of environment? Or do you think it operated about the same as when you guys are just kind of running a text thread for an extended period of time?
Oh, it was way more effective. We had vastly better results. I think out of the 7 people who played in the open, 6 of them made day 2.
Nice. Yeah. Do you think part of that came down to the crunch time, like the short amount of time that we had to brew and to put things together with that bundle coming out the week of? Or did it just kind of be a byproduct of people going so long without organized play that everyone was stoked for this one?
It's a bit of both. In the off season, we were definitely talking over what we could do better. And we wanted to solve the problem of kind of being disconnected. And sometimes we had a bunch of people posting decks and not a lot of people commenting on each other's decks. And, when you're all on a call together, it's hard to just do your own thing. So that was part of what led us to that. And then we had some brewing calls once Stormbreak released, but I would say it was more the competitive season and just excitement and want to improve.
Yeah, we as a team kind of saw that as well. Pretty much almost verbatim what happened to you guys happened to us, right, John? We saw a lot more people jumping on these calls. We had 6-7 people on a call, and man, it really felt super productive for sure.
Yeah, so much more productive than our experience was similar. It was like, you'd post decks and you just get maybe a few comments or whatever. But yeah, it's like everybody coming together and actually talking live is so much more productive. I agree with that stuff a lot.
Yeah, it definitely helps you pinpoint those trouble spots or those questionable, the flex slots, and kind of lock those in as well when you're speaking in real time. Go ahead, Boxer.
It's also a lot more fun. It's easy to get burned out when you kind of feel alone, even though you have this team. But when you're talking to people, COVID and quarantine has made us all feel kind of lonely. But if you're doing a voice call, it really makes preparing for the tournament an enjoyable experience.
Yeah, I think that was significantly more joking around, and it was great. Yeah, I agree completely. So you kind of answered this question a little bit already as far as what you're looking for, trying to get more wins than you did the year before. But what are your overall goals for the upcoming season? Are you just going to try, are you going to try to make every open? Are you really going to start to focus on getting that draft win? Just take it one open at a time. What's your overall game plan, I guess, now that you are qualified for Worlds? I mean, I feel like that's got to take a lot of weight off your shoulders, or do you think it just makes you more hungry, whatever the correct English term is?
A little of both. Part of me is just really relieved because I had been having the internal conversation of, before the Open, I want to make Worlds. After making it last time, I would like to do better at Worlds than I did before. But there's also a big chance I just don't make it this year because there are a lot of incredible players. Very few people make it to Worlds. And I was kind of preparing myself to go through this season and potentially not make it. And to have that thought gone is incredible. One thing I'm wanting to work on for the rest of the Opens is just continuing to improve my ability to play a large amount of Eternal, but in a healthy way, because I got very burned out at the end of last season. And before Worlds testing started, I took just a whole week off, no playing the game at all. And I don't want to get to a point where I'm that burned out again. I want to stay in practice and I want to play a lot, but I also want to get good at knowing when to just stop for the night and how what is healthy.
Yeah, I think part of that, though, they were definitely testing the waters last year with different schedules and different events and whatnot. And I mean, the Misplay did a pretty good job of covering how there was just it was too high of a concentration of events for people to kind of stick up with, both in time and financially and whatnot, and just mentally. So the fact that they've kind of solidified this Open season where it's pretty much one major event a month, and then they're all different formats, so you don't get necessarily burnt of one or the other. I think they got a really solid plan this year. And yeah, it kind of puts it where you can't afford to take a couple of days off and you don't feel like you're going to fall behind in some event. And obviously, like you said, you have that advantage now where at least step one of your goal is made. So that definitely puts you in a slightly better place. But I do agree. I think people keeping their mental and emotional health through all this, because it could definitely get frustrating, especially when you have that added weight on yourself. Like, I want to make Worlds this year, and you just keep stressing on it until you get there. And as maybe you miss a day too, that gets more frustrating and whatnot. So it's definitely a real thing. And I think moderation, like with all things, is the way to go. Now that you're prepped for Worlds, do you see yourself, knowing how last year went for you, and you've already talked a little bit about adjusting things, is there anything you have in mind to prepare for Worlds, like when you're going to start, how you're going to attack it? Or is it just kind of one of those things like when you get there, you get there?
So I'm thinking I'll do pretty much what I did last year for Worlds, and that was, I think, starting 2 weeks before, Lights Out Ace and I just started waking up and getting on a call at 9 and playing until like 5, stopping for dinner, playing from like 7 to 9 after that. Just treating it kind of like a day job plus a bit more. We were just talking the whole day, testing decks. We had teammates helping us a lot during that, and watching our sides. But like, just really intense preparation that was between the two of us, and that worked very well for us last year with a top 8 and a win. And I'll look for small ways to change it, but I think overall that preparation for that tournament worked pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, you can't knock those results, so I think it's sound. And then that's typically what I've seen for the most part from a lot of competitive players, where it's kind of you live your life, what you need to do, keep up with the game, and then once you kind of get into that crunch time is where you really hone in and kind of block out everything else to get your mind tuned. And like you said, it worked out. Like, those are pretty good results. So that being said, we're constantly having new players come into Eternal, and we have a bunch of players that people like Parmley and Darth Herman and myself and stuff that are getting into the competitive scene and making some results, but not quite where they're at. What advice do you have for all these up and coming competitors that might be new to organized play, but it is something they want to do and it's something they want to succeed at?
So, one thing I think that's important to keep in mind when you're starting up, and even as you're like an established one, is to not focus too much on results or statistics. I made the day 2 of the ECQs, I think, once in the first season of competitive play. It can take some time to get where you want to be. And I also just philosophically think statistics for card games lose a lot of information that they're trying to capture, and they can be a crutch, and they don't help you prepare for tournaments much, and they're not good at telling you if you're a good player or not. So just throw statistics out the window. I know that's a controversial take when there's so many math people in Eternal, including myself, but don't crack your I don't think cracking your win rate helps. I don't think, saying, "Oh, I have never made day 2 in 5 tournaments. I must be bad." Like, don't dwell on that. Just focus on improving. Focus on making less mistakes rather than uh, looking at how much you're winning. Um, a second thing that I think goes a long way is learning how to build good power bases. This is something that even a lot of uh, expert tournament players are not enough. They don't have enough practice at it. You want to get out a hypergeometric calculator. I'm sure there are some. I think there are some guides somewhere. I don't remember exactly where on how to do it, but it doesn't take that long to learn. But once you start crunching the numbers rather than eyeballing power bases, you'll notice a big improvement in consistency. Playing your cards is a great thing. It helps you win a lot more when you can play your cards rather than having them stuck in your hand. So yeah, make sure you have a good power base. Having a good rest of the deck is important too, but build good power bases. And then another thing that helps is just focusing on learning and getting new ideas about why things work the way they do. Watch streamers, who and learn from what plays they make. When they make a play you don't understand, question why. Try to find why in that instance it's correct, and then try to extrapolate that. I think getting versed in theory, even on a surface level, helps a lot, because it can help you some if you know specifics of one matchup. But if you can apply a principle, like, if my opponent's making me discard a lot, I want to discard my non-power cards, because then I play my power and I can just draw one of my powerful units or spells or stuff like that. You are very rewarded for approaching things from a theoretical perspective.
Solid. I'm so down with that. And plus, the good thing about it too is sometimes taking the emotions out helps you make a more sound decision. Because I know I've gotten there sometimes where I start to creep on my emotions. I'm like, well, this is what I feel like should be the right play. I'm like, no, trust the math. There's a reason. And most of the time it ends up working out in your favor.
Yeah. So actually, one more point that you made me think of when you said the feelings part. Learning to accept variance and uh just losses from weird things happening helps a lot. Uh, you can't remove all the emotion from it. It'll still sting when you lose, but I try to be able to laugh about games that just had funny things happen. Like the Open this last weekend, that Fell Rock game where RNG got 4 Fell Rocks up was just hilarious. I lost, but it it was a an entertaining game. Or like there's one game I vividly remember from an Open or an ECQ. Now I'm calling them Opens. I thought I'd call them ECQs, but now I'm calling the ECQs Opens, where I was the one person with gavel in the top 64, and I played against Collector, an absolutely incredible player on Reanimator, and I thought, oh, I you know I'm gonna win this, and it was game 3, and I mulliganed to find a merchant to get my gavel, and I played the gavel, and he just played Black Sky Harbinger after Black Sky Harbinger and just won this crazy game where I had this answer to his deck that he had no way to stop, and he won anyway. And it would be easy to get mad about that, storm away from the table, but I found it funny, and I think there's a lot of value in just laughing about your mistakes or bad luck happening to you.
Yep, that is something I am very, very familiar with. But that is one thing I do try to express a lot. I know some people are the other way around, but I think being able to let go of the games that you had no control over or minimal control over, I think that will benefit you more in the long run than kind of getting upset about those, because I don't get me wrong. I definitely think you need to evaluate how you played that game and how things worked out before you're just like, oh, I lost to RNG. But when you can, like you said, identify those games where it was like you did the best you could and you still lost, I think that's a good way to kind of give yourself that mental and emotional endurance in these tournaments and during these grind fests, because you can let go of that baggage that you don't necessarily need. It's not very beneficial. One other thing I did want to mention too is that you said it, like it was you and Lights Out Ace that trained together and put up great results. We saw that with fellow teammates this past weekend as well. Alex Fierro and Always Face just practiced and brewed together and they got there. So I definitely think there's something to be said of even if you're not on a team, even if you have a big friend group, finding just one other person to bounce ideas off of, talk through plays, almost like when you mentioned with the streamer, watching the streamer asking questions, doing the same thing, even at a much smaller condensed level, is still very beneficial.
Yeah, you don't need a big team just talking over, like a lot of players are just happy to talk over stuff.
Well, that's going to take us into our last one. And so just a quick little bit about yourself. What is your favorite deck that you've played in all of Eternal? And then what is your favorite card?
So my favorite deck is 5 faction even Kilo Vox.
Yeah, you had me at Kilo. I love Kilo decks. So why is the 5 faction Vox Kilo deck your favorite?
One reason is it was like my, responsible for my ECQ win, but also I put a ton of work into it alongside Murder of Crows. We spent like 2 weeks before the tournament just working hard on this deck. It started as a joke where somebody had kind of dared Murder of Crows to put Kilo in a Vox deck because those were the 2 big decks at the time. And it kind of just surprised us by how good it was. And it was also just a really fun deck to play. There were so many one-ofs and two-ofs that every game felt different, and you had to solve problems with different resources. There were just weird interactions that you wouldn't think of. Like in one match, it was the even Vox pseudo mirror, and my opponent had put in some cards in their market as a joke. This was before broker or grafters,
Oh my gosh, I
and so there was no
remember
way to get
that.
them out. And I got out a Steely Resolve with my Damara, which is a 0-cost fast spell, negate a 1-cost spell. But we're both even decks, so how does it come up? Well, Quarry is in our decks, and my opponent quarried and found a worthy cause, and I was able to use that Steely Resolve they put in their market as a joke to win that game.
I do remember that. That was huge. The commentators were going crazy. Yeah, oh my gosh, like you were Michelangelo navigating that deck. I remember watching that tournament, and you did your game was on point that day. I mean, it always is, don't get me wrong, but man, it was an absolute delight. If you guys get the chance to go back and watch those VODs, if they're still up, or if someone got the highlights or something, it was, yeah, like definitely showed the skill of, I mean, it's a complex deck for sure. I don't think just anyone can pick it up and do well with it, but that was a sight to see, most definitely.
So my favorite card is Stone Star Scrapper, which is the 5-cost, 1 shadow, 4/6. Whenever one of your Grenadin dies, you gain 1 life, and it has pay 1 and sacrifice 2 units to draw a card once per turn. So this is my favorite card because Scrappy Hour was one of the first decks I really okay, I enjoyed playing a lot of decks, but Grenadin was just my thing. I brought it to every tournament for a while when it was legal. I had an ETS win with it. I came over from Magic, where the thing that inspired me to start playing competitively was watching the Aristocrats win a Pro Tour. I don't assume everyone knows Magic knowledge, so Pro Tour is like a very big tournament, and Aristocrats was this sacrifice deck that was like this big brew that nobody knew about going into the tournament, and it was like so I hadn't really had a good chance to play a good sacrifice deck before then because I just didn't have the money to play a lot of standard decks in Magic. So it was just I love that deck, Renadin.
Yeah, that's another one for me too, for sure. I was like, wait, I think Witching Hour was one of the first cards I opened in packs. I was like, oh my gosh, how do I play this thing? And when I saw that Stone Scar Grenadin deck, I was just like, yep, sold. I'm gonna craft this thing. So I'm right there with you. There was nothing better than making a bunch of Grenadins, having your opponent wipe them, and then you drop a Gear Cruncher, Gear Cruncher to get them all back. And then it's so many spells, so your hours are cheap. You're like, yes. It's definitely a fun deck to play. I agree. And Scrapper does some work in Limited as well. Every once in a while they throw them in the draft packs and they do some work, most definitely.
Yeah. And it's also a card that you can run away with games where I think one of the big lessons everyone learns when Scrapper is legal in draft or constructed more is if your opponent has a scrap tank that's like a 21/21 and a Scrapper, you deal with the Scrapper because you're going to lose by more if they keep drawing cards.
Very good point, my friend. Very good point.
I was just thinking about one of the things that Boxer said at the beginning that you're going to try this year. That's kind of terrifying to the rest of us. So, yeah. Way to go. Beware everyone else. Boxer's going to actually try this year. Oh my gosh.
Pro tip: try not to queue into Boxer. John?
Well,
Yeah, go for it.
actually, I don't know why I'm saying try. I should say do, because there is no try.
Big congratulations on the results on the tournament, and hopefully you don't take too many more qualifying spots from the rest of us leading up to your next play at Worlds. Although I
Thanks.
guess that'll
Yeah.
make the wild cards a little more interesting if you scoop up some more spots.
I mean,
Does it work?
you got to cash out a couple more times so you can keep buying these bundles.
Does it work that way this year? Like, like if somebody already qualified gets another win, does that become a wild card this year?
I'm not exactly sure. I think so. I remember they mentioned there'd be extra slots available for something. I'm drawing a blank right now, but I don't remember if their post specifically said if somebody won multiple opens.
I feel like they covered that, but maybe they didn't. I'm not sure. We'll have to go back and look at the announcement and whatnot. But I feel like they might have mentioned something like that.
I know they planned for it at least. I don't remember if that was in the announcement, but if anyone can do it.
Yeah. Fair enough. And since you mentioned it, I want to give a quick shout out to fellow teammates, IP, Team Kill, Team Captain Longno, and Stormguard for making day 2 this weekend as well. They did a fantastic job.
Jedi underscore EJ also made day 2. Just FYI. You never mention yourself, bro.
I mean, yeah, I get lucky. Every once in a while, you know? And then of course new teammates also made it. Like I said, Always Face and Alex Ferrero both made day 2, so congratulations to them as well. But all right, I think that's gonna do it for our main topic, which takes us into our constructed corner. John, tell us about your constructed deck.
All right, so as usual, I guess I'm not going to go over the entire deck list because you'll have the link in the show notes and all that. But yeah, so this is like based on Boxer's teammate Popotito's deck from the tournament last week from Throne, where he made use of Eccentric Officer. By the way, a card that I think I was low on in the set review, and I could not have been more wrong about that, because this is like it's just so much fun. It really is, and like if you can construct a reasonably winning strategy around it, like yeah, you're gonna have some fun games. So this is a fun deck. I mean, I did play it in the TNE this week, so I guess it's technically tournament playable, but it's meant to be for fun, because like I feel like the consistency is not quite there, like in the Throne version that Popotito did, but the whole game plan of the deck is basically stuff a lot of expensive cards that you want to randomly swap the costs of to make them cheap with this card, Eccentric Officer, which basically reads summon, randomly rearrange the costs of all the non-power cards in your deck. So to help facilitate this, you want to lean most of your deck pretty low, like a lot more ones than normal, and lots of 1s, 2s, and 3s, and then some haymakers at the top, which have hopefully been randomly cost reduced by the time you get to play them. So yeah, basically I have in the instructions for playing the deck, step 1, cross your fingers, step 2, play Eccentric Officer, and then step 3, like it's just question marks, because it feels like every time you pull a card off the top of your deck, you're rolling the dice, and like a lot of times you roll double 6s, and you're just like having a great time. So in Expedition, we do have some tutors available in Realign the Stars, and so I think essentially all of the top, well, not all, but most of the top end that we're going for here can be fetched with Realign the Stars, since they are amplified cards. And then we're also playing 4 of Channel the Tempest as a as another finisher. And yeah, when those channels cost 1 or 2 or 3, like you feel like you're cruising. And there's a lot of ways to uh, recur your spells once you've used them from your void. We're running what's the card here? Down Dark Scrounger to do that. Needs
Go ahead and
a
read it
unit.
for us.
Sure. So it's a 2/2 Granite and Pig, and well, when it attacks, your spells deal +1 damage, but that's not really relevant. I mean, it can be for this deck, but it's really just for the summon. You may sacrifice another unit to draw a spell that deals damage from your void. So that's just there's 3 of those in the deck as ways to recur things. Sometimes early game you need to just pick back up a Nectar or a Vicious Overgrowth to keep the board clear so you're not just dying. Because sadly, you do have to play defense a lot before you get to the part of the game where you can pop off. So there's a lot of tools in the deck for that, like, Permafrosts and Overgrowths, and then just a lot of dorky bodies to gum up the ground that also help you churn through your deck. Grenahens and Crafty Occultist, 2 of the new cards that we talked about on the show last week. And then, yeah, general spells that deal damage go with Grenahen, as well as Align the Tesseract, which is one of our finishers, which is a crazy card. It's a 12 cost card. Play a 12/12 Tesseract Prime, which is like a huge unit. I think it's a 12/12 with Decay. Basically says anytime one of your spells deals damage, I think draw 2 cards, and your spells have Decay as well. So it's super powerful. It's kind of an all-in strategy, but I don't know, like in this deck, it's just one of many haymakers, right? So you don't even care if you just play the Tesseract on a turn and draw 2 cards. Like that's usually enough to keep you in the game, to keep churning through all these crazy card cost cost swapped cards in your deck. Yeah, a lot of times you'll just you'll have a weird board state. Your opponent's putting a lot of pressure, and you've already done the eccentric officer play, and you're just there's a specific thing you need to do, and a lot of times you just gotta go for it, right? If you have a unit to sacrifice with a Display of Menace that lets you dig 4 cards, that'll usually get you one thing, which will get you to the next thing. So a lot of times you have to make a bold play like that, and hope that it goes in your favor with this deck. So yeah, I mean, if you're timid, this is not not a deck for you, right? I wish there was a little more consistency available for this strategy and expedition. Like one more kind of tutor effect, but I don't know. There's enough draw in this deck that it usually does get there. The one card that through gameplay I feel like has been good, but I think could possibly be something else is definitely Helio. Um, Digging that deep can be really beneficial, and sometimes it only costs 1, but I feel like this build may have too many high cost cards, so like maybe Helio should be something just a little cheaper, like Wisdom or something. I'm not sure, but this build has performed enough for me that, like I said, I played it at the TNE this week, won some games, and had a lot of fun. So yeah, I don't know. I know I was kind of all over the place as usual with my explanation here, but yeah, it's like just a big fun combo deck, and like you just kind of never know what's coming off the top of your deck, right? Sometimes it's a 12 cost Seek Power, and sometimes it's 1 cost Channel the Tempest. So
Some people just like the thrill of the chance,
yeah, like I didn't know that I would like it so much, right? Like it's like an RNG card. I don't know. I like consistency. Like normally I'm kind of, you know, I prefer like kind of Boxer was saying earlier. I like my decks to have that consistency to them. Like I like the occasional fun deck, but I'm not gonna play something like this, in a serious setting, unless it's like close enough. And that this one's like borderline. So yeah, it gets definitely thumbs up for me, but I don't know.
Fair enough.
Can have some
All
fun
right,
with it out
Boxer.
there.
Now that you wear the brewer hat at times and you were talking about power bases earlier, what do you think about this deck?
I think this deck is very cool, and it feels like what Spire Shadows wanted to be, because when that card was released a while ago, everyone was like, okay, this is going to fundamentally change how we play Eternal, or at least I think I said something like this is one of the most powerful cards ever printed, and that didn't end up working out that well, changing only unit costs with their what's that, attack or health, I forget. Okay,
Oh yeah, it was
either way,
changing
that's not important.
their attack with their casting cost.
Mhm.
Yeah, and so that card was cool, but didn't quite. This feels like it's a lot more there than Spire Shadows ever was. Like, this brings. Okay, obviously, I try to apply math to everything, but one of my favorite card game math points is shown here in that cards that, like, for every 1 power the cost of something increases, the impact of that card increases more than 1 power's worth. So, uh, like, even though you're sometimes ending up with these 12 cost seek powers, you're more than making up for it with these, uh, 1 cost 12, align the Tesseracts, and, like, that illustrates that point, mechanically. So I love that aspect of the deck. I also don't think you can go very wrong when you're playing Grenahen and Crafty Occultist. I
Right.
love both those cards. And, like, they're just incredibly powerful, and I was surprised when both of them were revealed. Like, really? This is a real card?
I mean,
Yeah.
they gotta sell those bundles somehow, right?
Like 4 of Grenahen was in your tournament winning deck, right? Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah,
Right,
or
this
the
last
one new
weekend.
edition.
Yeah, like I don't think this deck in Expedition would be possible without those 2 cards specifically, because they're Occultist makes Grenaden and Grenahen is a Grenaden, and so like sometimes that Tesseract is 3, 5, 7, whatever cost, or not 5, but 3, 6. And anyway, like that 1 or 2 random Grenaden in play that you just happen to have because you've been playing your cards comes in very handy with this deck, right? Um, it's those little synergies like just kind of make it actually playable. So yeah, those 2 cards like enable this entire deck basically. So
And there's one more thing that I really like about this deck compared to, like, some other more, uh I guess I don't know if I'd call them RNG, like, some other kind of combo-y decks, is you get to still keep playing the game after the combo's assembled. Your opponent doesn't just auto lose from, uh, 4 to the whatever big power damage, or 4 times 2 to the whatever big power damage. Like, you get to do these crazy turns where you play multiple cards in one turn that you normally wouldn't be able to, that you only get to play one of a game.
yeah, yeah, great points. Yeah, and like this particular card, I guess I didn't mention in the deck, Gelatinous Form. It has Amplify, right? So when that costs just 1, 2, or 3, and you get to amplify it for 2, suddenly you can go from no board to easily 5 of these 7/7 regens out of nowhere, and your opponent's just like, what? And there's not a lot of answers for that in Expedition, other than like Equalize, and we're running some face ages here, so it can definitely work out. Appreciate the
Nice.
kind words.
All right,
Any
guys.
comments from you, Jedi, on this one?
I mean, I like consistency. RNG just doesn't like me, so I think the deck is fun. It's super sweet, but I know what would happen to me. I draw Helio with like 3 Primal Source every time, or something crazy like that. Like, it would just, I'm like, oh sweet, 12 cost Grenahen, awesome.
Yeah, there's a little like there's some things you got to kind of watch out for when you're playing through it. Like if you need power, obviously you don't play Grenahen necessarily. Like, but once you've done the activation, Grenahen can get the gelatinous and the channel, but not the Tesseracts. So it's nice to already have a real line in your hand before you go off. I mean, there's all these like little things that like once you play the deck for a while, you'll kind of realize as far as play patterns and stuff. But I mean, mostly it's just it's fun to just go for a ride with it, right?
Yeah, I still got to try brewing with that the green ultimatum. I forgot what it's called now, but Burden or something. No, it's not Burden. It's something. Anywho, that's the one I'm gonna try to brew
Gallows
with. Which
Revolt?
Yeah,
there you go,
Bellows.
Revolt. There you go.
I did a big Rakano officer deck brewing around that as well. I don't think it came out nearly as good as this one because it doesn't have the like tutor effect really, like other than the bellows, but and there's no way to cheat out the bellows without it randomly. I don't know. Anyway, like I did a brew with it. Like it definitely works okay. With Svetja, you know, as long as you play Svetja first, you're the one that gets the units and all that. But it's just hard to get there with just those colors and expeditions. So I don't know. That one's on the shelf for now. But
Yeah,
maybe
fair
a
enough.
throne brew with that or something will get there.
Fair enough. All right, guys. I think we'll call it a show here. John, thanks for the brew. Boxer, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show and just allow us to celebrate your win with you. I'm sure a bunch of people are going to get useful information out of this and just be able to pat you in the back for a job well done, because despite the Eternal community being a small one, it is a very competitive and very expert level play one. So once again, thank you so much for being on the show. Really appreciate it. Where can people find you at?
So, well, first, thank you for having me. This was a lot of fun. People can find me at TheBoxer ECG on Twitter. I put a lot of stuff on Twitter. A lot of it's card games. Some of it's just other random opinions I have. And
Math
then,
problems.
yeah, I talk about knot theory a lot, or not recently, but like I'll talk about math. And then, as we mentioned before, Backlash podcast. And then I'm not currently streaming. I might stream in the fall. Although I'll put something on Twitter then. I don't even remember which I lost one of my Twitch accounts when I came back from Budapest, so I don't remember which. So I might try to get one that like has TheBoxer in it, so people recognize. I'm going off on a large tangent, but yeah, Twitter's the main way to find me.
Oh, you're good, man. Tangents are all I do on my Twitch stream, so you're fine here. Trust me.
Yeah, we love tangents.
Sweet. Well, definitely check him out whenever you go on Twitch. And yeah, the podcast is great once again. I enjoy it. Backlash Podcast. Check it out. And yeah, I get a kick out of your tweets. Sometimes I don't quite always understand them. I'm like, yep, that one goes over my head. But I do enjoy it when I'm on the tweets. So thank you so much, Boxer. Really appreciate it. All right, guys, that's going to do it for us this week. Thank you so much for tuning in. Until next time, as always, happy gaming.
Good night.
Good luck in your draft queues, everyone.